Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Ted Bannock, and we have, I think, a pretty swift episode for you.
It's not quick.
No, it's not quick, it's swift, and those two are very different.
Very different. Okay.
Yeah. But I love talking about it. We'll talk about the differences.
Yes. Well, before we get into the card, let's just very quickly run down how people can stay connected with us very swiftly. Okay, if you care to strike out into the internet and not see what we have, if you're not happy with what we have on the pod or on the video episodes, which are the same thing, you can check out the blog at cardtalk2018.com, and you get to see the written reviews that Matt does. Cat Attack 22, he enjoys keeping up with us here at the pod. We also have a playthrough series, which let's see, Micah, I don't know why I forgot his name for a second. Micah puts together every other week a playthrough with deck restrictions, and it does good. And he is actually the main guy behind our swag this year. So if you're interested in getting a swag for anybody, new players, old players, it's something that anybody can have. If you're only doing revised content, it's something that you will like. If you're an older veteran player, then you would also like that. So there's all sorts of options here for you to like the swag. If you want to partake in the swag, you have to become a patron before the end of April. So April to October, you have to be a patron for those 6 months. Let's see, right? Because April, if you join in April, it's May, June, July, August, September, October. So you have to join in April for the May to come at the $5 a month level. So let's see here. And that's at patreon.com/cardtalk2018. But that is enough about all of that good stuff. Ted, what's the card today?
Hey. Today's card is Swift Strike, Dave. It is a 2-cost tactics event. Response: after a character is declared as a defender, deal 2 damage to the attacking enemy. Wow. There you have it.
Okay.
So, do you run this card, Dave? Yay, nay?
I was actually just thinking about places where I could run this card. And
not places that the card is currently being run.
Yeah, and I don't. I have played this card, but if I'm going to spend 2 tactics resources, it may be better off playing them on 4, like Defender of the Ramas. And I think that this is
Sure.
This is the thing about cards like this, is that this is a one-time. Cards like events. Events are one-time deal. So you want that event to make a kind of a game-changing thing. And so if you have to use this event to help change your game, 2 damage, I think that there's a lot going wrong for you. But but is there a better way to spend 2 resources than to just do 2 damage to something? And so here's kind of I'm going to get into the weeds. We're just coming out. So for anybody who doesn't know, we record a chunk of episodes all together. So we just got in off of our Quick Strike episode. So now we're into Swift Strike. And so we got into the weeds really badly last week when we were talking about all the rules. But here's where I can see this card benefiting you. So Bilbo, Tactics Bilbo, when you quest successfully, does damage to an enemy in the staging area that you have picked before you quested successfully, right? And so you can do damage to enemies in the staging area. And then you can bring down, engage that enemy, and you can maybe defend it with a Gondorian Spearman. And then if you can do 2 damage and maybe kill it before you even have to feel the wrath of whatever. Like, there's cases where doing 2 damage to something is good, but here's the, like, I don't know, if you're doing 2 damage to something and it kills it, you probably don't, in most cases, you don't need this card to kill the thing you were targeting. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And so, like, that's what I'm saying. It's like those 2 tactics resources and a sphere that doesn't have a ton of resource acceleration. 2 tactics resources are way more valuable than 2 leadership resources. This card just is not strong in a lot of cases. But again, I think there are use cases where you can play this card and feel good about it, but not a ton. Ted, what's your take? What's your take on this card?
Well, so yeah, I think there's a couple. The biggest benefit is the fact that it would kill an enemy before the enemy gets to resolve their attack. So it can A, save you damage, and B, save you any potential bad shadow effect, right? Because sometimes it's not extra attack. It could be exhausting a character or losing resources, discarding cards. Character's not getting, like, a whole bunch of bad stuff. But the effect is not strong enough on its own. You do need to sort of combine it, right, with other damage dealing effects. And so it's sort of, unless you're kind of going with that as a strategy, I kind of agree with you, where it's like, oh, you're better off maybe just investing it in more attack or another ally or something to that effect, or more defenses that you suggested. But doing that damage and saving the damage and saving the shadow card, it can be big. But yeah, you got to play it with, like, the effects do stack. So out of the core set, you have the Gondorian Spearman.
Right.
He's very similar. When you exhaust him, he deals a point of damage before. So if you combine this with him, you're dealing 3 damage. And, like, now you're kind of getting somewhere.
Right. And then maybe Thalon, right? Which does a damage when it comes off. So now you're at 4 damage, and you're not really, like, it's not horrible, 4 damage.
Yeah.
It kills a lot of things.
Right. So yeah, I could see, without having a giant whole deck dedicated direct damage, if you had just those cards, that would actually, I think, be enough. Because Thalon's always doing his damage, and then the Spearman is kind of there to chump block for you anyway. But you combine it with this, then you get another block out of him, another damage out of him. So if you combine some of these effects,
right,
is what you want to do, and playing it by itself.
And that's what I was getting at with Bilbo, Tactics Bilbo, like Gondorian Spearman, or Tactics Bilbo, even with Sting, and then this card, like Sting, when you defend, it does a damage, like back the guarded card. I know that you don't love guarded cards, right? But it's all the same sort of thing, like, what's the lore card? Like, so then you get into the direct damage, expecting mischief, where when the card comes off, and so and I can appreciate this card, because I always say that this game is incremental. At some point you're going to do 28 damage to an enemy and you're going to be able to steamroll everything. But the important times in this game, it's when you're doing 1 or 2 damage, and it makes it easier next time around. Like, the beauty of Thalon is that he does damage to everything as it's coming off the encounter deck. And it kind of softens everything up so that when you engage it, it becomes a little bit easier, right? That's the beauty of Tactics Bilbo, is that those, you're doing a damage here and there then it's easier to kill things when you engage it. So, like, and so this kind of plays into that direct damage, although I would say playing solo, direct damage is really not a valid or it's really hard to play a solo direct damage deck because you need so many cards because you're only doing, like I said, incremental damage along the way. You need so many cards to do that it's hard to do other things in that deck.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. And so this does fit into those things, but it's not like I do not play this card in a general sense. It doesn't solve a lot of problems for me. And that's kind of the honest truth about it.
Okay. Well, there's the honest truth.
That's the honest truth for me.
From Dave. Yeah. I tend to agree.
Yeah.
Basically. So it's got plenty of uses, but just don't use it by itself. But we can take a look at the artwork.
Yeah. What do you think?
I mean, it depicts a swiftly striking dude. He's punching that orc in the face with his butt of his sword.
Yeah.
In Mirkwood or somewhere else. Like
it looks like he's kind of grabbing the sword in a weird way. Like it looks like he's like, I'm going to hit you in the head. I would say that the face on this character isn't the best. I don't think it's supposed to be anybody in particular, but it may because it seems to have like an elven cloak on him. But it may be Boromir, but I don't think so. Could be Aragorn, but again, I don't know. Like, there's nothing that says Aragorn to me.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, okay, it's nothing that I'm like crazy excited about.
Yeah, so, and this is a good time to remind people, like, I always feel like the core set art is good. Like, there's nothing wrong with this art. It's good art, and it's pretty standard fantasy art that's, good. But this game has such good art pieces that it lowers the value of the good art to, like, you put this next to Tactics Eowyn and you're like, oh, like, like Tactics Eowyn is so good that this card now looks worse because of how good Tactics Eowyn looks, like.
It is. A lot of it gets compared to, it's relative to other art in the game.
Right. And so this doesn't strike me as good art for the game. But, I mean, it's good. It's good art. Like, I can't draw this art, so it's fine. So, should we ring this guy?
Yeah, let's ring it up too while we're at it.
Okay. So, for anybody who doesn't know, maybe you've forgotten or maybe you're new to the show, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we ring a card on a scale from 1 to 10. And 1 is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it came. And I will thank Phil. Phil, thank you so much for getting us that little end of the tagline. Phil is still out there listening. I just got an email from him the other day, or, well, a long time ago actually now, but, he's still contacting us. So, Phil, thank you so much for being in contact with us. But
yeah, we like hearing from folks and saying hi and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we appreciate it, guys.
Ted, what's your ring rating for this?
Well, I think that this is a piece of direct damage decks, but you have to kind of really, like I said, play all those effects together, or at least multiple. And I think those decks can kind of run out of steam because half of them, there's a lot of heroes that contribute, like Thalin, and Tactics Bilbo, Haldir, a lot of different strategies and ways to do it. But they're so like event based. I feel they kind of can run out of steam at some point, even though they're fun to see when you watch people go at it. But this card, as being a piece of it, I'd say is a little less important. So I'm going to give it like a 8.
A what?
An 8.
Oh, a sate? I thought you said seis. I thought you were speaking Spanish there for a second.
Maybe.
And then I thought you said 7 and 8 together. So there was like 3 different ratings all at once. Then I was confused because I'm not very swift.
Yeah,
another piece of the another hero is Argalad. Argalad does,
also lore.
Lore, arrows from trees. There's all sorts of like cards that do direct damage, but none of them do like enough direct damage to make it. Straight shot is like the best direct damage, but that doesn't do damage. That just removes something from the game. So, I don't know. So, and this is also a real bummer. I have played this card when I've like played the Mumakil, or when I'm playing up against the Mumakil and Oliphants and all that, and they are limited to the amount of damage that they can take because they can only take 3 damage a round. So you're like that doesn't even help on those big enemies that are are going to be hanging around for multiple rounds that much. So anyways, so I'm gonna give this card a 9 only because it belongs maybe in a direct damage deck, but that's about it. So a 9 for me. Yeah. So anyways, there you have. Maybe next week we'll come across a card that we actually like. In this bank of episodes, it seems like we've lots of 8s and 9s going around. Like I said, this is the reason why the core set took us a while to get to. But what do you get for 1 card a week? Sometimes we have to do the not so good cards too.
Yeah.
So,
rubber biscuit.
I don't know what that means, but that's
what do you want for nothing?
Yeah, rubber biscuit. I think I'm gonna use that. Anyways, everybody, see you again next week as we talk about more cards in the game. Have a great day.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube, and there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.